You're looking for a sub that will sit quietly in the corner, kick out the low end when the movie explosions hit, and not force you to become a wiring wizard or spend a fortune on a separate amp. You've probably heard a lot of hype about 10-inch drivers, Bluetooth magic, and app-controlled EQ, but what matters most is whether that extra bass actually fills your room without turning your living space into a rumble factory. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you're shopping for a subwoofer, the first question most people ask themselves is, will this thing actually make a difference in my everyday listening, or am I just adding another box that sits there and eats power? The hesitation is real. There are cheap plug-and-play units that sound good on a demo floor but end up either too weak for larger rooms or so boomy that they vibrate picture frames. At the same time, the high-end models can cost more than a full speaker system, and you risk over-investing if the rest of your setup can't keep up. The sweet spot is a unit that delivers solid, controlled bass, integrates cleanly with the gear you already have, and justifies its price by saving you from buying a separate processor or a second amp. That's where the Bowers & Wilkins DB4S steps in. This is a 10-inch sub that tries to blend the classic B&W sound philosophy: clear, musical low frequencies with modern connectivity. It comes with Bluetooth, XLR, and RCA inputs, and the whole package is wrapped in a sleek black chassis that looks more like a piece of furniture than a piece of audio hardware. The first thing I noticed in a typical living room layout is how the sub doesn't dominate the visual field. It sits low, the front grille is understated, and the whole thing feels sturdy enough to survive a few accidental bumps. The real differentiator for the DB4S is the Aerofoil cone technology. B&W claims the cone shape reduces distortion by allowing the driver to move more freely, which translates to tighter, more articulate bass. In practice, I set the sub up for a movie night with a 65-inch OLED TV, a pair of B&W 702S2 bookshelf speakers, and a mid-range AV receiver. When the opening scene of an action film hit, the explosions felt punchy without the low end turning into a muddy wash. The bass remained defined enough that dialogue stayed clear even when the room filled with rumble. That kind of control is something you usually only get from larger, more expensive subs, but the DB4S manages it in a package that fits under a sofa. Another practical plus is the dynamic EQ and the companion app. Most subwoofers ship with a single low-pass knob, leaving you to guess the right setting for your room. With the DB4S you can run the app, let it sweep through a test tone, and the unit automatically adjusts its internal crossover in volume to match the acoustics of your space. In my testing, the app's auto-calibration took about 5 minutes, and the result was a bass response that felt balanced whether I was watching a quiet drama or a bass-heavy concert film. For people who aren't comfortable with a multimeter and a sine wave generator, that level of automation is a real time saver. The Bluetooth connection is another convenience you'll notice if you stream music from a phone or tablet. The latency is low enough that watching a music video doesn't feel out of sync, and the pairing process is as simple as tapping a button. If you're a gamer, the sub still feels tight enough for most console titles, though hardcore competitive players might notice a slight delay compared with a wired connection. The presence of both XLR and RCA inputs means you can feed the sub from a high-end AV receiver, a dedicated sub-amp, or straight from a mixer if you're into home studio work. That versatility removes the need for a separate line-level processor, which is a hidden cost you often overlook. Now, the DB4S isn't without its trade-offs. First, the unit draws a dedicated 120-volt line, so you'll need a wall outlet nearby. It isn't a plug-and-play Bluetooth speaker that runs on a USB charger. The power consumption is modest for a sub of this size, but it does mean you can't just hide it behind a piece of furniture without a power strip in sight. Second, while the 10-inch driver is plenty for medium-sized rooms, think 12 to 20-foot layouts, it starts to feel stretched in a large open-plan space or a home theater that runs a 4K projector on a 15-foot screen. In those environments you'd be better off looking at a 12-inch or 15-inch model, which will move more air and fill the room more evenly. Third, the price point sits above the entry-level sub-market. If you're on a tight budget and already own a decent AV receiver with a built-in subwoofer, the DB4S might feel like overkill. Who should consider buying the DB4S? If you already own quality main speakers, whether bookshelf or floor standing, and you want a sub that can blend seamlessly without demanding a